Let's go. In and out. 20-minute
Coding.
adventure.
Hello everybody, I'm back again here with the Excel sheet. I wanted to make a video where I talked about the feasibility of the balance changes that leaked around 3 months ago. The purpose of this video is mostly to judge whether, like, if I, for example, came to you and told you, okay, here's the code of the game and you have like a day and your job is to implement the changes that they had proposed some years ago. I can't do it because I'm sick that day. Bye. So that's the way I'm looking at it, basically. Of course, if you already know anything about programming, you would be able to implement some of the things that I consider harder easier. But for the sake of argument, let's pretend you know absolutely nothing about programming. And I just came to you and told you, do this. So for the purpose of the video, I compiled every single change into a nice little Excel sheet. You can see here the card class with some color, the card name, the change type with some colors, I'll explain them in a bit. The current version with the relevant effects and stats, the leaked version again with the same thing. The change is marked in bold, except if the change is something very small and it doesn't really matter. And some notes I have added that I might talk about as the video goes on. So let's take a quick scroll through the list. You can see every single class. There are also some hero changes, so there they are. This Excel sheet, by the way, will be in the, in the description, so if you want to take a look at it yourself, then you can do that. Also, for the purposes of this video, I have here two Unity games. The first one is a not really recreation of the game because it has a lot of features missing. So obviously this is not meant to be a recreation of the game entirely, just simply to show you some of the little things I'll talk about. And this one is a game I was working on like a couple of months ago, and it's pretty complete, but of course I didn't finish it. But this way I can show you how some changes would work online. Here I also have the code for this one. I might open up the code for the second one. And finally, a game I made. I'm just gonna be in a random map to show you the thing when relevant. For now, let's focus on the Excel sheet. Okay, so the most important thing to consider here is the colors. I made them in different shades, but they mostly just come in green, yellow, and red. Green in this list means it's a change I think you could implement if I just simply give you a quick explanation on how you would realistically do it. So for example, we have stat change for HP and or attack. My computer is lagging. Did my mouse die? Oh, come on. Okay, as I was saying, the green basically represents something that you could realistically change with just a little bit of knowledge. So in this category, I have put small ability change, which means, for example, let's look at alien use. Your current version is a plant gets -2, -2. If it's in heights or an environment, it gets -6, -6 instead. And the leaked version just changes the first part of the effect to -3, -3. I think that would be something that would be easy to change if you know what you're doing. Stat change cost, this is insanely easy, I'll show you in a little bit. Stat change HP and or attack, also the same, insanely easy if you know what you're doing. Keyword added or remove it, again, insanely easy if you know what you're doing. Tribe change, also insanely easy if you know what you're doing. And I think that's about it. So let me show you real quick why I think the green would be easy. Here I have a PvZ Heroes like Unity game. We have lanes, which are simply, let me go again to it, which are simply, well, the lanes in the game. This background, by the way, is just an image, so they don't have to do with the lanes, it's just there. So if we go to the lanes, and I show you the hitbox, it's just a rectangle that has a bit of height so that you can actually touch it if necessary. We have 5 lanes, and if you look at the code, the one on the left is considered a heights lane. The two in the middle are just ground lanes, so nothing important there. And the one in the water is a water lane, of course. I haven't implemented anything to make this matter, but this means, for example, that if you wanted to make a map that is different like those in single player, you could say this is heights or this is water or something. Okay, we have the plant and hero models. This means nothing. There's the sun counter. If I go to the canvas, which is basically the GUI, you can see we have the sun counter. It will tell you how many sun you have. It's at -1 currently, but that's just because it's a placeholder. And we have a preview, which is the thing that appears when you tap a card to see the details. So let's show you what I have. I will zoom in for now so that you can take a look. Okay, so this is basically it. I have implemented here in the code, let me show you, in the game manager, which is basically what controls how the game works, that if you press the D key, you will draw a card plant, which does what the name implies. So, okay, so if I press D, here we go, we have a plant. I forgot that I made some changes earlier, so let me fix that real quick. Okay, I have fixed it, and now let's do it again. Now, here we go. We have a pea shooter. It's a pea plant. It costs 1. It's a 1/1. It has its description, but it doesn't have an effect, so it does nothing. You can drag it across the board, and if you put it where it doesn't belong, it will go back to your hand. You can have multiple of it, and yeah. And you can drag it to the board to play it. Here we go. Since I didn't implement that it checks if this is amphibious to play, you can play it in the water, but of course in the actual game, of course it has a check to not let you do this, but for now let's just put it in the water since you can. You can tap on it here as well and it will show you exactly the same thing. And beautiful. Okay, so now let's close the game, go to the card, and let's say for example that I wanted to give pea shooter a little buff. So let's say we change the attack to 2. Okay, we just change it, we hit play. And now when we get it, look, it's a 2/1. Okay, you can check the description, it's still a 2/1. You can play it, it's still a 2/1. You can tap it, it's still a 2/1. So changing stuff like attack, health, and cost is very easy. Of course, we can pretend that they would have a bunch more plants. So for example, for each single plant there would be a prefab, which is basically something that lets you create an object from the code. For example, here I made a plant that is apricot. The image of course is a pea shooter because I couldn't change it, but you can see here in the code that it's a 4/2 that costs 3. It's a kabloom. The name is apricot, and the traits are it's a fruit and a plant. So let me change in the code. If I go to the game manager, here is what currently is drawn with the card draw code. Let's change it to apricot. Okay, now I hit play, and if I hit D, here we have apricot. Again, the image is not correct, but there we go. It says anti-hero 2 because here I put here in the code just a description temporarily that it has anti-hero 1, but that is obviously not correct. So let's just fix it quickly by cutting this, and I'll put this as a comment so that if I need it later we can go back to it. Okay, here we go, and apricot, which is just a 4/2 3 cost that does nothing. So we can play it, and it's still a 4/2. Again, it's looked like a pea shooter, but that's just because I didn't prepare an image for apricot, but whatever, it's fine. Okay, so on to the point. We can go here, and for example, the change they wanted to do to apricot was they wanted to reduce the stats to a 4/1. Okay, so if we go to our code, we can go to the health, make it 1, save, and hit play. Okay, so now we draw, and here is our 4/1 apricot. Beautiful. Okay, so basically, to summarize, if you want to change the attack, the health, and the cost, that is insanely easy. You can also change the class of the card very easily. There we go. And here is a Mega Grow apricot. It doesn't change anything except the background currently, but you can change even that easily in the code. You can also add any traits you want. So let's, for example, say it's a I don't know, a bee. Now let's add something original. Let's say it's a zombie. It doesn't make sense, of course, but let's just say it's a zombie. And there we go, it's a fruit zombie plant. Beautiful. Now, as for the keywords, we would, for example, just write each one individually. If we wanted it to be, for example, hunt. Again, plants don't have hunt, but doesn't matter. What else? Yeah, let's write this that we had before. And let's say armored 1. Okay, currently we have written this, but I haven't prepared any code to make this actually happen, so it will look exactly the same. But if we went here, we could prepare something, or well, assuming they also have that reads basically here and implements the ability into the card. So assuming they have that prepared, this would also be very easy. Here with the number, it would also be fairly simple because, for example, if we go here to my game, this one that I made a couple of while ago, if you look at the chat, we can do, how do you open? Well, okay, /help, and it will give you a description. You can see that we have commands that require you to do something. aside from just typing the first part. So for example, we can do time limit and I don't know, a bunch of numbers. Okay, that's too high, I forgot I had that time limit, let's say 5,000, and currently this is the time. If we change it, wait, we gotta add time first, so time plus 999. Okay, there we go, we have a lot more time. And basically what the code is doing is reading this part, like this part, and then the symbol you put to decide what you want to do, and finally the number you write here. So basically it's reading anything you write after this, which means, for example, here in the anti-hero one, and I spelled this wrong but doesn't matter, in the armored one, it would read this part first and then the number to decide how much. If we look at the code of the game, okay, here we go, the chat manager. Basically what it is doing is checking if you have the chat open. If it's open, it will receive what you're typing, and then when you send the chat, it will, if it's a command, do something. And for example, let me look at one of the ones we did, like the time. Okay, here we go, the time. What it does is check if you have written time in the first couple of characters, so if you wrote exactly this, and if you did, then after these characters, it will check whatever you have written next. In this case, the plus, the minus, the equals, to check what you're doing, adding, removing, or whatever. And then it will check the number you have after that right here. Here it's checking after the 8th position, which in the command it will be the number if you write it correctly. So that's how it would determine that. So basically, over here in the anti-hero one, it would read this part, and realize you're trying to add anti-hero as a trait or as a keyword, and then how much in the number there. So stuff like keywords would also be easy. As for the small ability change, this one would be a little bit more complicated, but again, I think you could realistically do it. If we go to the code of, let me close this one of the different games. We go to plant on board script. Of course, you would need a different script for tricks, since they don't get played onto the board, but still. We have do when played effect. So I haven't written anything here, but you could, for example, make it, let's say, attack -1. This would have to have like something like a switch statement, which means it checks something to determine what to do, in which case we can put, for example, card name, and say that if it's what card buffs itself when played. Click, piece. I forget how it's spelled, but just pretend it's spelled like this. Okay, there we go. Let's pretend that this click piece, when you play it, its health and its attack would go up by 1, and of course the sound cost, but I don't have that implemented. Okay, so if you wanted to change the ability, you would go to the card and look for its name, and then change how much it would affect the card. So again, I don't have the structure to really show that, but it should be realistically simple as long as you have access to the actual completed and finished code. Now, before we move on to the yellow ones, I wanted to show you this, because of course, again, this is missing a lot of features, and among them, one of the more important ones is the multiplayer aspect, because any change I am making right here, it would not reflect on the side of my opponent, because I'm just changing in values in my computer, not on the side of the opponent. The way to fix that, of course, would be simply to, let me stop playing, okay, would be, for example, if I made this apricot nerf, you would have to just have it like this, and then update the version of the game. So for example, in the game manager, we could have something like static int, or let's say a float, game version equals private void start, which means it happens right when this object is created. We can say game version equals and some numbers, so like 1.34. F just means it has decimals, so don't worry about it. So yeah, that would be the game version, and if we made a change, then we would have to make it go up by 1, so that when your opponent who has an outdated version of the game tries to play, it shows your game is outdated, go to the Play Store or whatever store to update your game, so that both players have the correct version, and that this change that we made, that this is now a 4.1, is shown to both players, and there's no problem. Since this game is also a server-wide or well, a game that uses servers, this change would also be needed to be sent to the server. Like the server also has this information that Apricot is now a 4.1, but for the sake of argument, let's just pretend that doesn't really matter here. Okay, now let's go into the yellow ones. In the yellow ones, I put medium ability change, which is just a bit harder than the small ones. New ability existent, let's see what else, and that's about it. So if we take a look at an example for new ability existent, we have Nurse Guard, which currently is when this deals damage, heal your hero for that much, and they wanted to change it to when a Garg deals damage, heal your hero for that much. This part, when a Garg already exists in the game in a lot of cards. Here are some examples. But you would have to know how this works in the code to realistically add it to a card. So for example, here is my current most recent multiplayer game. If we hit play, for example, this will take a minute, I'll just cut to where it's ready. Okay, here we have a game I made. I'm the host in here, but I'm playing in my phone also, so this is also me currently. I can change the difficulty, etc, but that's not what we're here. If I hit start game, it will start countdown. Okay, and then I can walk to the combat area. And here we go. Okay, so this game has enemies, and you will automatically start attacking the closest enemy. Here we have the Boltlings, which have certain abilities. They attack after a certain period of time. And yeah, so that's an enemy. It has its own code and stuff. Okay, so now we're here. Here we have a Nutbling, which attacks nearby enemies, and a Boltling, which shoots bombs at you. Okay, so that's two different enemies. Now, let me show you what I mean by existent ability. Okay, so here is the code for the enemies. I'm using Photon, which is a good tool for multiplayer games for free and easy. I'm pretty sure some big games use it. I'll put them here on the screen if I remember to check. The point here is that I showed you three different types of Nutblings and Boltlings and whatever. And here the code, you can see that I utilize enemy ID, which are numbered in enemy name. Dirk Nutbling, Spear Nutbling. We didn't see this one, but it doesn't really matter. Slingshot Boltling and Bomb Boltling. Okay, so basically here in the code, if we go down, okay, here. Let's say, for example, the attack. Here currently, the script checks if the enemy is not a Spear Nutbling or a Bomb Boltling, it will simply attack and run the code, create projectile. But if it's a Bomb Boltling, it would have to do this. RCP, create projectile bomb, which is of course a different projectile. Now let's say for some reason you wanted to give the bomb to the Spear Nutbling for whatever reason, then I would have to go here and write, for example, something like and equals enemy name dot Spear Nutbling. Okay, so with this, now the Spear Nutbling would also chuck bombs. Of course, you will also have to change stuff up here. But basically, if you know what you're doing, you can have the existent ability in the game of one thing to another thing. But I don't know how the game is coded since I don't have the source code of PvZ Heroes. So how easy it is to implement when Gargs do stuff or other similar abilities that already exist. Like for example, this for Overstuffed Zombie. When this destroys a plant and it survives, it heals to full and gets plus 2 HP is the current version, but they wanted to give it this at the end and heals your hero for 2. Healing abilities already exist, but how is it implemented in the code, and would it be easy to make? Because for example, if they just have a secret keyword that it just needs to say heal the hero on damage or something like that, then you would just have to copy that and that's it. But if it's not like that, then you would have to probably copy the code from the fly trap. So basically, depending on how it's made, this could be either very easy or very difficult, and that's why it's in yellow. As for the medium ability changes, it really depends on the card, because for example here we have Zombot. I consider this a medium ability change. When playing destroy all plants, gravestone, when destroy all plants here and next door. Okay, so how easy would it be in the code to change from targeting absolutely every single plant to targeting only plants in its lane and next door? Here you can see, for example, the note I wrote where I said considered medium because surprisingly there is no here and next door ability for zombies. Because yeah, trust me, I checked and I'm pretty sure this word, specifically this wording, does not exist in the game for some reason. So again, basically, anything in yellow is something that you could probably do if you know what you're doing, but it might not be easy, especially because coding games usually gets messier as time goes on. It eventually gets very long and you don't even know what you're writing at some point. And finally, for this video, we have the red ones, which is new ability, new, which means it's entirely new ability, and major ability changes. I think that's the only two. Okay, so let's take a look at one. We have Deep Sea Guard, which currently is just a 7/8 amphibious. And they wanted to change it to 6/6 stats hunt. When any zombie enters any lane, that zombie gets +1/+1. Okay, you could argue this is already an existent ability in some zombies, but I think it's new enough that you would realistically have to code this from scratch. You could probably take some parts from some other little cards, but this basically is doing what Hunting Grounds does when any zombie enters any lane, because this includes when they move, I'm pretty sure. So they would have to keep that to this, but that's giving the ability of an environment to a zombie, and how easy that would be, I don't know, so I consider that new. Let's take a look at another new ability. New for Nibble, a plant gets -1/-1, and they wanted to add, if this destroys a plant, conjure a gourmet card. I wrote in my notes, considered new because there is no trick that does something only if the card is destroyed, although there are non-trick cards with this ability, which is true. I checked, there are no tricks that have, if this destroys a plant or something, then you get something else. As far as I know, that does not exist. It exists on plants, again, like I said, where cards that, for example, draw you a card or conjure something when they destroy something. But as a trick, this ability would be entirely new, and how easy it would be to implement, I don't know, because I don't know the code. Basically, that is every single red one. Let's look at one more. Pirate's Booty, major ability change. It's currently a 5 cost that draws a card for each zombie in play, and they wanted to change it to a 3 cost. The zombie's attack becomes 4, and then it does a bonus attack. This is a lot of things, but realistically, everything here exists. For example, the causes matter again. A zombie's attack becomes 4. This is very important because unless you count cards like what I wrote here, unless you count cards like Cosmic Knot or Tree Knot as something that already does that, then this doesn't exist otherwise. And a bonus attack is whatever, you just put it at the end. So basically, that's my explanation for this from the view of someone who does a little bit of programming. You can agree or disagree with some of my judgment of whether it would be easy or not. Also, something I forgot to mention, this is me obviously, well, you can look at the screen, you know I'm doing this after editing everything else. I forgot to mention, of course, the fact that this game has modders and they're pretty good at what they do. Like the Ohio mod is pretty crazy, and they add a bunch of new stuff. So obviously it is possible to add every single thing on the list if you know what you're doing, but again, this is looking at it from the perspective of someone who just got told go do this, and they receive a very small tutorial, which, let's just say the tutorial is this video since I showed you a little bit. So yeah, that's the point of view. Again, everything on the list is technically possible if you know what you're doing, but like, you know, this game probably doesn't have any employees who will realistically get started in the balance changes. The only person we have left, as far as we realistically know, is someone who like fixes the stuff if something major breaks, like, I don't know, the multiplayer or the season, something like that. So yeah, I might as well rewrite the outro because I forgot to mention this in the original. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Leave any comments if you agree, disagree, or anything, and goodbye.